Look, this mission that we have, it takes hard work. But as you've heard me say many times, we like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work can be joyful work. And in doing our work, we will remain committed and intentional about building community.
You should be committed. No doubt about that. At least to some kind of a drunk tank. Now, it's a good thing she wasn't driving. Good thing she's got a limousine. Staffed by big, strong men with guns. Guns are good, as long as they are there to protect left-wing oligarchs and their minions. There must be some kind of way out of here, said the Joker to the thief. Well, happy Wednesday to you. The day before Thanksgiving, one day remains. You have family descending upon you. Are you going to go join family for Thanksgiving? I've got a little bit of a peculiar one myself this year. My best girl and I think, maybe I shouldn't even talk about it because might be best that way. Right now, I'm going to hold off for now. So I just stir up trouble. Which I'm fine with doing, of course, but let me just tap hold on that for a moment. Good Wednesday to you and welcome back. We remain at 888-630-9625. Yeah, and it's true that the Kamala video has got that crazy little graphic bubbles coming up along the screen right, and nobody knows why. Think maybe she had been drinking a lot of champagne or something with a lot of bubbles, maybe Hennessy, but carbonated. She looked like she was kind of hammered, like she had been up all night, like she had been partying. Was she in Hawaii or was she in San Francisco when she shot that video? Kind of fascinating. A newsman friend of mine explained Kamala, she went to the Big Island in Hawaii, which they call Hawaii, interestingly enough, to the Big Island. But, Honolulu is not there. It's over. But that's not important. She went to the Big Island. And the news media completely ignores her when she goes to the Big Island. Of course, they completely ignored her for a number of years now, haven't they? They're not really in the news business, the news media. But when she goes to the Big Island, she hangs out. And I think apparently, according to reports, she drinks very heavily. And again, I've been told over the course of the last several years now that from people that are close to the seat of power, that Kamala is famous for drinking alcohol. She likes to drink her alcohol, and that means she becomes inebriated. And this is a part of her reputation, like Joe Biden walking around the vice president's residence naked. So the Secret Service has to warn one another in their two-way radios, talking to their hands, Cobra, 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 Cobra. That means the goose is on the loose and Joe Biden is naked again. And then if not a Dr. Jill Biden comes out naked, which she also has a history of doing, clamshell, clamshell, clamshell. So they got Cobra and clamshell when they're wandering around naked. I'm not sure if there's a code word for Kamala's hammered again, but maybe there is. I'll have to check on that. I'll see if I can find out anything about that for you. But Kamala went to the Big Island in Hawaii, took Air Force Two out there, spent time on the Big Island. She went there in 2022, also on vacation to the Big Island, and the news media completely ignored her. No news media apparently went along. There was no news media coverage. The news media didn't send anybody to the Big Island to see what she was up to. Somebody shot a quick video of her hiking in Hawaii on the Big Island in 2022 and provided that video to TMZ, the showbiz people. And TMZ played that clip of video shot with someone's cell phone in the jungle. And that was it. That was the total coverage. And Kamala went there, I don't know how long, more than a week ago. I think well over a week ago to Hawaii. She disappeared from here and nobody noticed. I mean, she was just, this close to being president of the United States. I am, once again, holding my right index finger a half an inch over my right thumb because she was that close to becoming president of the United States. And if Joe Biden stepped down today, she would become the president of the United States today. You think it might be worth paying some attention if we had a news media in this country. But we've got a number of problems. One of them is we don't have a legitimate fourth estate. We don't have a legitimate news media. It's a remarkable time to be an American, I've got to say. Wah, wah, wah. And Kamala, they're still raising money to offset their debt, right? Because they spent $1.4 billion and still spent more. Tens of millions more they spent, and still they lost. Wah, wah, in a landslide. Let's call it a landslide. It makes them angry when you call it a landslide. So I like to call it a landslide. Isn't that amazing? And Kamala's drunky video is a lot of fun and making headlines all over the world. Kamala Harris called a functional alcoholic and broken as she drops new video. Isn't that remarkable? And then there is, of course, the Kamala campaign chieftain. She's kind of a chieftain. Is she Native American? I don't know. She's Jen O'Malley Dillon. Jen O'Malley Dillon. That's her name. And she was the big chieftain of the Kamala campaign. Doesn't seem like a lot of laughs. She was the chairman of the Kamala campaign. Is that chairman? They just said chair, which is a piece of furniture, because they don't want to get all into the gender thing. You know, they're a little concerned about that. Maybe she's the chair X. She could be the chair X. If she were Latina, then you can't say Latina. You have to say Latinx. That's remarkable. But Jen O'Malley Dillon, she went on a radical left-wing extremist podcast called Pod Save America, because they reject all notions of God, except when it comes to wiping Israel off the face of the earth. And then they're in with the jihad, and the Allahu Akbar crowd, because they got that going for them. But here is Kamala campaign chieftain, the chair without a gender, Jen O'Malley Dillon, on the radical left-wing extremist podcast that only Democrats like, talking about the campaign and why they made decisions to not go on the Joe Rogan podcast. President Trump went on the Joe Rogan podcast, spent 3 hours talking to him. Huge moment in the Trump campaign, and they refused to go on. They said, hey, well, you're based in Austin, Texas. You can get on a plane and come to us, and we'll put you in a hotel room, and we'll give you maybe an hour and not 3 hours like you normally do, and we're not going to help you do anything. So they basically told him to go take a hike on the Big Island is the thing. Kamala Harris's campaign chair, Jen O'Malley Dillon.
We would do an interview, and the questions were small and processy and about
dumb.
They were not informing a voter who was trying to listen to
Dumb.
learn more or to understand. That does a disservice to voters, and being up against a narrative that we weren't doing anything or we were afraid to have interviews is complete. And also took hold a little bit, and we just gave us another thing we had to fight back for that Trump never had to worry about.
Yeah, Trump never had to worry. He had to worry about being shot in the head again. That was one of the things he had to worry about, because you guys kept sending men with rifles to kill him. That's one of the things he had to worry about. Secret Service detail had to worry about that, too. And Jen O'Malley Dillon, they're such petty, useless weaklings, such spineless, gelatinous frauds. We do interviews. Really, I don't remember one, but okay. And the questions were small. Well, make the answers big. They were small because you're being fluffed by Democrat Party hacks posing as journalists. See, that's why the questions were small. And they were processy. And the processy question was, why haven't you done an interview in 84 days? You're supposed to be running for president. You're not holding any events. Trump's getting crowds the size of the population of South Bend, Indiana, where Pete Buttigieg used to fail to repair the potholes. They're small and processy. And you're sitting there with these idiots from Pod Save, because Pod is their go-pilot, And they used to be Dog. Dog is there because it's the opposite of God. They hate God. If God came to earth, they'd crucify him. They're the left. They're a gang of murderous miscreants. But never mind that. The questions were small and processy. Now, Jen O'Malley Dillon, there are no small questions, just small candidates with small brains, with small resumes, with nothing to say, and that's your candidate, and that's you. And they, they wanted to do this Eat Chicken Wings podcast, as it turns out. But the Eat Chicken Wings podcast people, they said, no, I don't think we want to do a political interview with Kamala Harris, so they didn't do one. But she's attacking the media and blaming the media, the chair of the Kamala Harris campaign in 2024. She is, I don't know, is Jen O'Malley Dillon the biggest loser in the history of the world when it comes to being campaign manager? Perhaps not. There have been a lot of other campaigns. There's got Howard Dean with the Scream and all that stuff. We got a lot of stuff. We got Michael Dukakis with the tank helmet on and all that. But Jen O'Malley Dillon now wants to blame. Well, of course we didn't do interviews because the questions were small. Well, just do what all Democrats do. Feed them the questions to ask. Then they'll ask the questions and you can provide her with the scripted answers, which you did the whole time. And they were processy, were they? Is that just about her hair? What is that thing? Not informing voters who want to learn more. Isn't that amazing? You people. But Kamala Harris, she made a video. It wasn't even an interview. And she screwed that up. She can't even speak in complete thoughts or sentences there. The work must continues.
That work continues. The work must continues.
The work must continues. And her staff is sitting there, and it's a video they're making, and they see that she's making these drunken grammatical errors, and they don't stop her and say, listen, you just said the work must continues, so I think we're going to cut it there and do that one over again, even though nobody asked you a question or anything, because your little tiny brain is on parade again. But Kamala left Hawaii on Air Force Two, went to San Francisco, and spent the night there. Who knows what? We don't ask, and neither does the press. And then came back to Andrews outside of Washington. So now she's back here, I guess, staying in the vice president's residence and not talking to her father, who lives nearby. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Matt, calling from Rockville, Maryland. Matthew, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Oh, happy Thanksgiving, Chris. How you doing?
Very well, Matt. Thank you.
So first off, this video had to have been put out by one of the staffers that got fired, right? I mean, there's no way. This seems like sabotage. No one would do that for someone that you still care about. But so she was bragging about raising $1.4 million, but for what?
Billion.
You got nothing out of that $1.4 billion, and you lost, and you're bragging about that. America dodged a bullet because if spending $1.4 billion and ending up in the red, mind you, spending that much money and losing, thank God you didn't get the keys to America's purse strings in the federal budget, because if that's a success, you could have driven us way into debt more. And Chris, I used to bartend. I like making drinks at home. I libate probably a little bit, more than my best gal would like. So I've heard of vodka. I've heard of rum. Chris, when did they invent this alcohol called Joy? Because if that's what it was filled with, it's got to be an alcohol. There's no way it can't be. And finally, Chris.
Yeah.
Finally, I love that they avoided podcasts until after she lost. Now they're going on podcasts to complain. If you had put this much focus on going on podcasts before, your candidate may have had a chance.
Well, they assume that the media will do all their work for them, as the media normally does, and that is a funny bartender story. And yeah, you're right, Joy. She might have been chugging a lot of Joy, and there must have been bubbles in whatever Joy is, because they put these bubbles on the side of the video, and nobody knows why. That's quite peculiar too. But now there are literally media people now saying this video is representative of her relaunching her political career, because she wants to run again in 2028 for president of the United States. Can you imagine?
Oh, please do. Please do.
So great. So great. Please do. Matt, great call. Wonderful call. Thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your gang. And libate all you want, as long as you're not driving, because you don't want like this Chicago Democrat who got pulled over while hammered. Want to get to that one, too. Yeah, Joy. Great stuff. Matt, former bartender. His best girl thinks maybe he libates a little too much as a verb. That's fun. Hey, come on. It's a holiday weekend coming up. Start early, because you can't drink all day if you don't start first thing in the morning, as everybody knows. Thank you, Matt. A recent reanalysis of a study shows that 1 year after having an abortion, women tend to exhibit 50% higher likelihood of first-time psychiatric needing treatment 1 year after an abortion. And 87% of women are more likely to experience a personality or behavioral disorders 1 year after an abortion. This isn't women's health care. It's exactly the opposite, of course. But a great organization called Preborn's network of clinics across this great country of ours, women are welcomed with open arms, and they're shown generosity and decency and politeness and courtesy, and they're shown their baby on an ultrasound and offered life-affirming choices. See, it's choice. It's all about choice, right? And when the mothers, when they choose life, they're offered assistance by Preborn for up to 2 years. And I'm talking maternity clothes and diapers and counseling and a whole lot more. Preborn helps treat the whole person, the whole woman. And there are 2 people to treat there because of the baby growing inside of her, of course. Donating to Preborn is very simple. All you have to do is dial pound 250, pound 250, and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250. The keyword is baby. Or visit preborn.com/plant. Preborn.com/PLANTE. All of your gifts are, of course, tax deductible, and Preborn has a 4-star rating as a charity. Yes, sir. Yeah, Kamala. From the halls of Kamala. I love the headlines, too. The headlines are pretty hilarious. Kamala called a functioning alcoholic and broken as she drops new video. That's not a success.
We will do that work with a sense of joy, yes.
Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. There's a funny little moment, President Trump did the Joe Rogan podcast, and Joe Rogan was not so long ago not only a Democrat, but a left-wing Democrat. Now he's one of the world's biggest podcasters. Well, he was then, too. But he was a Bernie bro and all that. And he then had his eyes opened, as so many of us have. But there's a funny little moment because the Democrats are always very angry. Why don't we have an Elon Musk? Why don't we have a Joe Rogan? Why don't we have a Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Why don't we have a Tulsi Gabbard? It's a funny one coming up on that. All right, we are back. Now, as for Kamala's drinking, it's funny, the Reuters news agency published a story on November 3rd of 2020, just before Election Day 2020. And the headline in the Reuters news agency story is fact check, because we're talking about her drinking, right, and sounding drunk. And a law enforcement affiliated friend texted me a few minutes ago saying her cognition is definitely impaired. And honestly, I think if Kamala had been pulled over by the police driving her own car and she sounded the way that she sounds in this video, she'd definitely be pulled out of the car for a sobriety test. She'd be walking a line and touching her nose with her fingertips and doing all that stuff. But the Reuters fact check from November 3rd, 2020, here's the headline. Photo does not show drunk Harris does not show drunk Kamala Harris throwing up in the bushes and staggering around. Well, I don't know how a single photo could show all of that. I think you'd need video for that. And on that date, November 3rd of 2020, the Reuters news agency wrote, social media users have been sharing a photo of Democratic vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris purporting to show her drunk, throwing up, staggering around, and being confrontational. However, this is a misleading still image captured from a video Harris posted of herself congratulating runners after a Thanksgiving Day race in Iowa in 2019. That doesn't answer the question as to whether she was drunk or not. It just gives you the date and the name of the event. The posts show Harris outdoors, bent over slightly with her mouth open and eyes shut. Now, I know you want to make Willie Brown jokes here, but her face slightly contorted as if grimacing. The caption says, quote, throwing up in the bushes and staggering aimlessly at the Cleveland airport was the last straw before staffers put Kamala Harris back in the plane and took off for Oshkosh. Onlookers claim the clearly intoxicated Harris was confrontational, but too weak to put up much of a fight. Now, the people at the Reuters news agency in 2020 said, that's not what happened here. You can see the photos, and why don't you just post the video? But they didn't actually post the video, interestingly enough. But she does, and I've told you this before, she does have a reputation in certain circles in Washington, D.C., of being a drinking person, one who drinks a lot of alcohol, at least on occasion, maybe not morning, noon, and night, but nevertheless, and notwithstanding. All right, so that's kind of a fun element in all of this. And the headlines from Kamala Harris's video, her posted video, which are pretty funny, I've got to say. The Gateway Pundit with the headline, "Is she drunk?" ? Kamala Harris looks rough in first video message to supporters since concession speech. And that is fun. Yes, it is. And, of course, the Times of India with their hilarious headline as well, suggesting that she looks hammered and everybody knows it, a functioning alcoholic and broken.
The work must continues.
It's true. The work must continues. Oh, that's great. Great stuff. Now, also, I should mention, because Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski are such awful people, such horrible, terrible people. They really are. You think they're as bad as Kamala Harris or worse than Kamala Harris? Because Kamala Harris, you know, in her time as vice president, in Washington, D.C., if you're working as a staffer in politics, getting a job in the vice president's office is a big deal. I won't curse. I'll just say it's a big deal. And everybody in Washington will tell you that. A lot of people whose names you know worked in the offices of vice presidents, perhaps before working in the president's office, perhaps before going into elected office themselves. But it is a big deal. Kamala Harris was such a horror to work for that more than 90% of her staff quit their jobs, which should be some of the greatest, most prestigious jobs in Washington, D.C. You get business cards with the vice presidential seal on it, and I'm holding up like I'm holding a business card, holding my hand up like, oh, you know, it's got the Veep seal on it and this great stuff. Your business cards, wow, you know, you're out in the real world, and that business card dazzles. But about 90% of her staff quit because, and it was not because they found better things to do. It's because she was so awful to work for. And they had to put nets up around the building where the vice president's office is because so many of them were hurtling to their deaths. I just made that part up. Just the last part I made up, but the rest is true. Now, Joe and Mika are terrible, too. In fact, Joe Scarborough had a young woman working in his office, his congressional office then in Florida. And mysteriously, this very young, healthy woman fell over somehow and hit her young head on a table and was killed. Nobody can explain that one. That's just a great mystery. And the news media doesn't care because now he's with MSNBC. But at MSNBC today, the people at the left-wing Mediaite are paying attention, and the headline is "Just in" this morning at 7:49 a.m. Just in, colon. They do love their colons. MSNBC loses almost half its viewers in stunning post-election ratings report. They have a stunning post-election ratings report. NBC is facing a staggering ratings collapse in the wake of the 2024 election, with the network's audience shrinking by nearly half as Fox News became the only cable news outlet to show post-election growth. I think that Newsmax has shown post-election growth, too. In fact, my show on Newsmax in the last year, the audience has increased by, I'm not going to say 50% because it's 48%. 48%. But that's what we saw. We have Newsmax, very steady growth. But the left-wing radicals at Mediaite, they only do hit pieces on Newsmax because they're lefties. But back to MSDNC. According to the Nielsen ratings people, MSNBC's total viewership has dropped by 47% post-election, 47%. And its critical 25 to 54 demographic plummeted to just 63,000 during prime time, which is when they're supposed to get their highest ratings, a sharp contrast to its pre-election numbers. The losses are particularly stark compared to rival network Fox News, which solidified its dominance as the most watched cable news network during and after the election, while MSDNC pulled 644,000 viewers in prime time. Fox News soared to 3.2 million. That's an 86% year-over-year increase. Again, I know we've had at least a 48% year-over-year increase at Newsmax. And in the coveted 25 to 54 demographic, which never made any sense, they're not the ones with all the money, but okay. Fox saw a 147% surge, averaging 476,000 viewers. Now, MSDNC struggles, and their struggles continued, drawing fewer than 500,000 viewers, only 49,000 in the 25-54 demographic. Isn't that amazing? They're just so awful. Adding to MSNBC's challenges, several of its marquee programs, including The Readout with Joyless Reed, the radical anti-Semite, homophobic, racist, that's the kind of person they love in left-wing media. The 11th Hour with Stephanie Ruhle, which reached historic lows in the 25-54 category. Across the board, the network trailed far behind Fox News and struggled to retain viewers. I got to say, we beat MSDNC. We're a newer network, Newsmax, and not in as many households, still having to fight some cable systems and so on. But a great app, wonderful app, easy to use too. So it is the Democrats, they're imploding. Also, the rumor is that Comcast, the parent company, is going to put MSNBC up for sale, and Elon Musk is making jokes about buying it, which would be great. He should buy it and make it make Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid do conservative topics and have panels on of just normal conservative people, all of whom are smarter than they are. They keep telling me how smart Rachel Maddow is because she was a Rhodes Scholar and all of this wonderful stuff. And I think she was probably born with a sufficient IQ. It's just that she's a brainwashed zombie who's absolutely wrong about everything and one of the most misguided people you're going to find anywhere. Just amazing. All right, now, Joe Rogan. Let's go to this Joe Rogan thing. I talked to you earlier this week and last week about a photo that emerged on Al Gore's amazing internet. And it's kind of a fun photo. It is, I think, from left to right. It is Elon Musk and then Tulsi Gabbard, the former Democrat congresswoman from the state of Hawaii, where Kamala was just hiding out. And then Donald Trump and then Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And these four these four people side by side. And the caption is, four former Democrats. And I actually heard a liberal say it the other day at Newsmax saying, well, if we Democrats, if we had Elon Musk, you guys have Elon Musk and Twitter. It's like, well, you did have Twitter and you had Jack Dorsey and you corrupted the 2020 election because you're filthy criminals. And the CIA was corrupting it and the FBI was corrupting it because you're filthy criminals and you got to be dealt with and held accountable. In a just society, you'd be held accountable for corrupting our elections. And Joe Rogan, famous podcaster, 100 million people follow him every day or whatever. I think it's 14 million, actually. And one of the most successful podcasts in the history of the world. And Joe Rogan was a Bernie bro, right? He was a Bernie Sanders guy until he started paying attention. And now he's a Trump guy, and he interviewed Trump for 3 hours, and Kamala wouldn't do his show, and then they lied to us about it and all that stuff. But there was a funny moment because Joe Rogan was talking about this very thing, and now the Democrats are yelling, well, we don't have Joe Rogan. If we had a Joe Rogan like you, a podcaster, you got a million of them, but never mind that. If we had Elon Musk, and it's like, well, but here's Joe Rogan.
I'm sure they're scrambling to try to create their own version of this show. Right. This is one thing that keeps coming up, like we need our own Joe Rogan.
Right.
But they had me.
Well, number one, they had you. Number one, they had you. They had you and they drove you away.
I was on their side. You were on their side. Joe Rogan was a Bernie Sanders, Bernie the Bolshevik, lefty, which makes me scratch my head. And, it's a part of my understanding of Joe Rogan. And look, I was a Democrat once when I was young and foolish, but it didn't last that long. And so Joe Rogan said, well, they had me. They wish they had their own Joe Rogan. And this came up at Newsmax on my television show the other night, too. And the liberals like, well, if we had Joe Rogan, if we had Elon Musk, you had Joe Rogan. You had Elon Musk. You had Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You had Tulsi Gabbard. And by the way, you had Donald Trump. Just saying. But you guys are so crazy, you're so certifiably insane that you drove all of those people away because they're not insane anymore. They came to their senses. They shook it off. And, like a cartoon, after discovering that you people are certifiably insane, crazy, nutty, violent, mentally unstable, the usual stuff. Remarkable. But I like that Joe Rogan soundbite, and the people around him were like, but they had you. And I got to, the media environment, they're very angry. This is another thing they're angry about. Elon Musk tweeting, we are the media now, meaning people that can tweet and communicate with the world. And Joe Rogan is the media now. Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather, all of them, they're long gone. Used to be the backbone of the American news media, television news, evening news broadcasts. Now Joe Rogan is bigger than ABC World News Tonight, which is, I guess they don't have Snuffleupagus on that one. They've got that Pixie guy, that Pixie, that guy. You know that nothing delivers comfort and joy. There's joy again, quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha steaks. This year, you can skip the holiday hassle and the, shopping and the hustle bustle, and you can save 50% off the entire Omaha Steaks website with their cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, because, it's still early enough, you're going to get a $30 reward card when you shop early. And because you hang out with me, you're going to score another $30 off with the promo code PLANT. Wait a minute, how can you save that much? $30 gift card plus $30 off plus 50% off the entire website at Omaha Steaks. Listen, growing up in Chicago, I used to see Omaha Steaks boxes arriving at my neighbors' houses and think, wow, I wish we got those. Now I get them delivered to my house. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, you get to save 50% off the entire website at omahasteaks.com during the cyber sale. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with the promo code PLANT and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at OMAHA, OmahaSteaks.com, and an extra $30 off with the promo code PLANT. A minimum purchase may apply. Visit OmahaSteaks.com for all the details. Womp, womp, womp. Yeah, the Democrats, they used to have some smart people. They've all either left or gone crazy. All right, tomorrow is Thanksgiving. We were just talking about it during the break here and family things and all that. Or not, as the case may be. All right, let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Keith, calling from Gaithersburg, Maryland. Keith, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, good morning, Chris.
Hey, Keith.
I just had one comment in relation to this issue. When I was 18, I registered independent, but after the two elections I voted in, I switched to Republican because I realized I was voting everything Republican. And I asked my father, why would people vote for all those crazy issues there? I said, I can't understand it. And I said, why do Democrats do that? And he said to me, well, you got to look at it this way. Democrats are basically Republicans who haven't grown up yet. And I laughed my head off at the time, but then I realized he's actually kind of true. And so I've been a Republican basically my entire life. I'm retired now, and my father was had a lot of wisdom. So,
well, he probably had a few years on you, as fathers often do, and more experience. You know, I started out a foolish Democrat. Fortunately, I only made that mistake once, and then I got better, and I have Ronald Reagan to thank for that. I was very fortunate in that Ronald Reagan became president, and I was paying attention, and I got to meet Ronald Reagan a bunch of times, and that changed my view of everything. But it's true that when you grow up and you open your eyes, and I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to here on the radio, Keith, and people that I've met out in the world that have said, well, you know, I called myself a liberal and I was a Democrat, and then I opened my eyes, right? And then the real world, it's like, you know, your father's line, Keith, is kind of a variation on the old line that a liberal is a conservative that hasn't been mugged yet, right? And that's one measure, of course. And, you know, also when you start paying taxes and seeing what the government's doing with your money, well,